Never Really, Sometimes Always is an indie film dropped by Eliza Hittman. Um, and it kind of like popped up on my radar out of nowhere, I guess. I don't know how attuned to it you were, Dave, but it came out, got really great reviews right away. I think it's still sitting at 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, and went right to video on demand, which is something that a lot of movies are doing right now. So we were like, hey, let's mine those content like Snickers, like whatever we can get for right now. The drip, drip, drip. I really enjoyed it, but I gotta say, for some quarantine content, this was still some pretty heavy shit,
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Now I was aware of this because it was a big critical hit out of Sundance, where it won a special jury award, and then it also won the Silver Bear at Berlin right after that, which is like their second prize basically. And it was on my radar because it was supposed to be rolling out limited release in April, and it had started that first like LA New York run and then got shut down. So it belatedly gets put on VOD by Focus, and yeah, in a sense, that's definitely a tough break for a small movie that had a decent chance at having a successful indie run as far as small movies go. But yeah, it I was happy that it got added because it was really the first of these like early VOD drops that I hadn't seen slash still really wanted to see. So in a sense, I think that's going to start drying up as everything that had a little theater run is being already out. Um, but I'm definitely happy this was available because I was really looking forward to it. And I had heard about Eliza Hittman's second movie, Beach Rats, in 2017. It's been on my list the whole time. Still haven't seen it, but when I heard it was from the person who made Beach Rats, I was like, okay, cool, yeah, definitely with it. And then yeah, you get the idea, you understand why it's so critically raved. I think it's really great. But yeah, definitely not the lightest watch. Definitely a also quite a subtle movie where not a whole lot of plot happens. So I think you definitely have to be in the right mood, especially nowadays, to I think appreciate what makes this movie so great.
Yeah, I agree. And we're going to be spoiling. So if you haven't watched it for whatever reason, just bookmark this and come back when you have. Although, like Dave said, there's not a lot of plot. I think the thing that you can't really spoil too much about this movie is it's about the feeling I think you get when you watch it throughout. Um, it follows Autumn, played by Sydney Flanagan, in her big screen debut, acting debut, I believe, actually,
Yep.
and her cousin in the movie, played by Talia Ryder. The cousin's name is Skylar, as they venture from a small town in Pennsylvania into New York City so that Autumn, who's 17, can try to get an abortion for a pregnancy that obviously she did not intend. And, you know, sitting with the movie, when the credits rolled, my first thought was like, that's it. Like there was no big speech, there was no big like voiceover or monologue or even like a huge moment besides maybe one or two in the movie where you were like, oh wow. But then I kind of sat with it for like an hour or two afterwards. I was doing some other stuff, and what I really came to like feel was just that the struggle that the 17-year-old girl feels throughout the movie felt so frustrating but never despairing throughout the movie. And I think that's why I found this to be such a masterful performance by Hitman as a director in her second movie, because she really finds this sweet spot where she puts this 17-year-old girl who has very little support in her life, who's dealing with this huge thing that she doesn't know what to do, and she still somehow feels triumphant and sturdy throughout, even when she feels lost at times. But it never feels like, oh shit, this person's about to like not be able to figure this out. It always feels like there's this like inner strength coming from Flanagan playing Autumn. And just really, I thought it was a great performance all around from those three women, Ryder, Flanagan, and Hitman, especially. What would you leave the movie kind of sitting with most?
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd say the fact that the film doesn't present itself as a issues movie. Here's the movie about abortion. This is what we're
Mm,
doing. It's not like that. And the whole plotting and storytelling, I feel like it is in sync the whole time. When you understand what the title of the movie means, when
right.
Autumn is being asked about her uh, sexual and uh, relationship history, um, everything is still told in like a slightly vague way, but that's due to the choices of the character, and it makes total sense. And it's almost just leaving things on the surface and almost making it about like a bigger issue, bigger story, without like being really blunt and obvious about what that is. It's not hard to follow, but it's almost like a less is more thing. So I really like that. And it kind of tracks with the performances you're getting from the actors, which is, again, very measured stuff.
Mm,
And I mean, you said it already, but Sydney Flanagan, who I didn't read the whole story yet, but Eliza Hittman actually discovered her like years ago at
mm,
like some like party when she was a few years old. I'm actually not even sure how old she is, Sydney Flanagan. It's hard to get a lot of this info because it's like someone who's brand new. There's like no Wikipedia on her yet, So
yeah.
I assume she's like in her late teens, early 20s. But either way, uh, she really just kind of carries that movie. Like her cousin does not have nearly as many lines. I really liked her as well. And Talia Ryder's going to have a small role in West Side Story coming up this
Mm,
year, which is cool. But yeah, Flanagan really just makes the whole thing work because it's like you said. I think Surrey is a great way to put it. And I think as people that have been in New York before, it also obviously intentionally portrays how daunting traveling in New York City can be
hmm.
for the uninitiated, whether learning how to buy and then swipe a Metro card or um, the gruff attitude you can face from locals, stuff like that. I found that amusing just as overall like
Hmm.
portrayal of the city, which I think kind of contrasts to how I'm watching devs portray the Bay Area as well. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, the way that this movie tackles abortion and sexual violence and domestic violence and all that without um, aggrandizing itself with some like really obvious preachy speech. And not that having a speech about that stuff is inherently preachy on its own, but it doesn't even need to do that. It's almost like smarter and stronger than that. So yeah, I think it's really a impressive script, and I wonder like the directing too is like really really subtle, and you wonder how they got some of those shots right in New York because this movie
Mm.
definitely was not expensive. But yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah, and there's so many like I want to say little things, but they're really not that little. Um, like there's this feeling of lack of safety with every single guy in the
Oh
movie.
yeah.
Especially the stepdad. But the movie opens up, I think, really smartly because it starts off with this talent show. Seems like this kind of like throwback music talent show at this high school, and there's like this Elvis impersonator and these people really yucking it up. And then Autumn comes out there and she's very serious and she almost feels like she's like singing her heart out, um, but on such a different wavelength. And there's this like heaviness to her that the rest of the students don't have. So you kind of get a sense of who she is right from the get go, and then she gets heckled right in the middle, right? And that kind of starts off how every interaction with pretty much every guy in the movie, there's the sense of danger or the sense of like ownership that men seem to like feel over the women in the movie, like whether it's the supervisor at the supermarket who like kisses their hands
Yeah,
when they
God, that
hand
was
the money in, or
tough to watch.
yeah, and or the stepdad, how one, he's pretty like verbally abusive to her, but also like the how he like has this weird way of like using the dog to like portray something to the women. That part felt a bit a little confusing, but like vaguely intimidating. Or even like
Mm-hmm.
Jasper, who like I couldn't really get a sense of what his deal was until like they had to rely on him or call on him to try to get some help in terms of getting the bus ticket, and then you
Right.
kind of see he's got this ultimatum as well. And I think that really portrays well the perspective of Autumn and Skylar, who are
Right.
these young women who have been victimized, who have been taken advantage of, pressured into things, and this is the way that they see the world. That
Hmm.
most men are probably out or not safe for them, and I think that's done in a really smart way where it's not super in your face, but
Yeah.
if you just piece it together, it's really artfully done. Um, I also thought the using the local abortion, it's not abortion clinic, the local like young mothers clinic that she goes
Right.
to, and kind of how their methods and their perspective shaped the information that they told her to try to like dissuade her from doing certain things, making certain decisions. I thought that was really smartly done as well, and that kind of push and pull on her decision. I don't know. It was so real at times. It almost was how like hard to watch, but also I think really gripping throughout. So
Yeah. And the story would be a lot different too if, um, you know, Autumn lived a few hundred miles further south. Not
yeah,
exactly in train distance of New York.
right.
It could be even a worse kind of story. Um, yeah, though I think it's really great, and I'm curious to see how this does on VOD because it's not a movie that was ever going to get a huge marketing spend, even if nothing changed in our world. But I think people that seek it out probably be pretty happy with it. So it's
Mm.
definitely right at the top of my list so far this year.
Shout out to the mom played by Sharon Von Etten,
Yeah.
who we've reviewed her album last year. So fan of the pod, come on the pod, Sharon Von Etten.